Hi, my name is Brandon Schwartz, and this is Signature Motorsports. Hello everyone, my name is Brandon Schwartz, and this is Signature Motorsports. We've got a lot of awesome projects planned, including this one, which is my Pontiac G8 build. We are planning a single 88mm turbocharger, and we're kind of building this as a half-mile car. That's a little bit further in the future. Right now, it's more of just a street strip car. Quick rundown on this motor. It is a LS2 block, slightly bored, with a 4-inch crank and a set of PRC heads. We have a Rick Crawford spec 231, 239 duration cam with a 627 lift, LS7 lifters, stock rockers with the Trinion upgrade, and essentially the motor is going to be the exact same. This one, because it was built to be NA, the reason we had to pull it out of the car is because the compression ratio is a little too high for what we're comfortable with what we're planning on doing with the car. But right now, this motor is set up at about 12-to-1 compression, which isn't crazy high, but it's high enough to where you can run 93 still and still be able to drive it around, just go to any gas station and fill up, which was kind of the goal. I wanted to be able to, drive the car anywhere, road trip it if I had to, if there was no E85 available. Of course, I did run E85 90% of the time. During the winter, I'd run 93, but this car will not be driven in the winter anymore. The specs on the new motor, essentially, we're taking all the same components, forged rods, forged pistons, 4-inch crank, and we are going with a couple other upgrades, some new Johnson lifters. We are planning on putting all of those into an iron block. We're lowering the compression ratio a little bit, going 1/2-inch studs, Athena head gaskets with the steel O-rings. We are planning to make a lot of boost with this motor, and the goal is, I'd like to say, rough numbers, 1,500 plus at the engine. That's not at the wheels. I think we can make that goal with what we've got set up. We're planning on running a good amount of boost, a healthy amount of boost, and we have even lowering the compression ratio. We're planning on only lowering it a couple points. It'll still be pretty solid especially for boost, but 1,500 plus is the goal. We'll see where it lands. This motor, as it sits, I can't tell you the horsepower. It never dynoed correctly. The converter wouldn't lock on the dyno, which makes sense. It's a super loose converter, so it's 100% street tuned. I can tell you, however, that the personal best in this car that I have is an 11.3 at 124, and that was with a 2000 DA. So that's a pretty high DA for where I'm at. That was done earlier in the summer. It was high 80s. I know we could have gotten this car into the 10s for sure had I spent more time setting it up, dialing it in, getting the shift points right. But I started ordering parts for this turbo build and got focused more on that, and kind of gave up on the idea of an NA car. That was the original intent, was to make it a competitive NA G8, but competitive NA G8 is mid to high 10s. This car's gonna go a lot faster than mid to high 10s. Sorry I didn't film an intro right at the beginning when the car wasn't torn apart. I've been busy, I've been working, but hope you guys enjoy the video.
Make it spectacular.
Slow-mo.
What's up, guys? Time for an engine teardown. This thing's gonna be a beast. Already was a beast. Getting ready to do a teardown so we can swap over to a cast iron block, run some boost. Because Brandon asked me about bottles this last year. I told him bottles were for babies. But just getting the fluid strained out of her, and we'll get her tearing down here in a couple hours.
Thanks, Chris, for tearing apart the motor. Everything looks pretty good. The cam bearings look great. Cylinder walls look great. Everything, pistons, rods, it all looks fantastic. The only weak link we found and a learning experience potential thing we're going to fix in the future is we have a little bit of excessive main bearing and rod bearing wear. We think the clearances were too tight on those bearings. We were spinning this engine pretty high as well. We're going to make a couple of changes when it comes to this new motor, but everything for what we're seeing is looking good. I'm happy that we found the main bearings and the rod bearings now. Instead of course, if we had built this motor as the final motor for this build. But again, this is another one of the 500 reasons to redo it from scratch when you're doing something like this. Good opportunity, run different oil. We'll probably spin it lower. I mean, it doesn't need the high RPM anyways, as well as go with a higher clearance bearing. But again, we'll work with the machine shop as well as Texas Speed on that. For now, we have to get the new iron block to the machine shop. We're going to take apart the heads, and then eventually get them to the machine shop, give them the crank, everything they need to start clearancing that new motor.
So to go over some of the key factors that Brandon had mentioned about excessive bearing wear from the clearances, we can zoom in on that. You can actually see where we have worn through the coated bearing and almost started to wear through into the first and second material of the bearing. I'm thinking that's caused by, I think we had a little bit too tight of bearing clearances. We were running a little bit heavyweight oil. Brandon had mentioned we were spinning it at like 7,200 RPM. So, and Brandon's not a light driver on cars. So, this next build is definitely going to test my skills with how well I can put something together that is indestructible. If you come over and look at the crankshaft itself, we don't see any excessive wearing on the crank itself. All the fillets are good. No contact points between the bearing. You still see the polishing marks, which are the little granular grooves that run like linear with the journal. Nothing that catches the fingernail. And that's all stuff you really want to look for when you're assembling an engine, making sure your parts are good to go. If there was contact, we could have the crankshaft cut, even though I'm against it, especially with how high of a horsepower that we're building to. But at the end of the day, not my money. Like Brandon said, we're going to get this to the machine shop. We're going to probably have them polish the crank and the cam. Cam looks in excellent condition, just starting to break in. No bad marks on the bearing journals, no bad marks on any of the lobes, and none of the lifters had popped out of the lifter tray and rotated. We'll keep you guys updated and definitely look forward to putting this thing back together.